Oh my god, what am I doing? Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Just Thinking Out Loud. My name is Desi-Rae. This is going to be a bit of a rambling video. I came across a tweet recently and I started making a reply, and then I was like, you know what, I think I should make a video about it because I think it encompasses a lot of the difficult topics that are occurring today in society. So it was a retweet from someone that I follow by someone called Batya Ungar Sargon. I don't know who she is. She has a blue check mark. It says, "This is shocking, a true indictment of the left." And then there's a nested tweet from Grant Addison that says 55% of Democratic students, in brackets, said opposite political views would make them less likely to befriend another student, compared to 21% of independents and 12% of Republicans. Now, I don't know, that's actually not very shocking to me, just understanding the political climate that we are in today and the sort of reactions I've gotten from people when politics comes up. I try to not bring up politics whenever I'm talking to someone because I feel like you miss out so much of the experience of another person if all you think about is, I guess, their politics and make assumptions about their values based on what they want for the country. And I know people say, no, well, their values, what they want for the country, tell you their values. But in my experience, when you simply look at that as a part of the person that you're meeting, you miss out on so much that I guess you would have in common with them. But I'm going to get into that from reading these comments. So that wasn't that shocking to me. But what was shocking to me was were the responses to the tweet when I looked at them and the things that people were saying, because a lot of people were like, well, of course we don't want to be friends with people who have opposite political views because they stand for hatred of me and people I care about. They think that I'm not human, and their ideologies of conservatives or Republicans, and most people were using the word conservative from what I saw, stand for hatred and bigotry and sexism and xenophobia. Now, that was really weird for me to read. I'm sure that probably are some conservatives or Republicans that do behave like this, but if you think about the percentage, someone made a statement in the thread that was like, it's only about a quarter of the American population that voted for President Trump, because most people didn't vote, and then only half of the people who voted, about maybe a little less, voted for Trump. But if you think about that, that's like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people. That's a lot of people. So when I hear people talk about, oh, these people hate me, do you think you can go around in society living your life if these people really hated you? And that's something that I don't get, that jump in their mind that they're living amongst people who hate their existence. If you really think about it, if it's 1 in 5 people, that's enough to start a revolution, and that's enough to mobilize. That's enough to affect how you experience your life if they really held that level of hatred that these people are perceiving, to the point at which they have to reject anyone who holds and represents those views to them. But I'm gonna try and read some of the specific responses that I saw that I found very interesting. I feel like people take an opinion and they turn it into the hyperbole. So someone says, immigration policy, also if someone says immigration policy in this country is too lax, they have a different opinion. If they say foreigners are raping our women, build a wall, in exclamation, big caps and exclamation points, they have the opposite opinion. It's just, I don't know if there are many people who think foreigners are raping our women, build a wall. I'm not going to say that they don't exist, because they probably do, but I'm pretty sure that the majority of people who think immigration policy in the country is too lax don't think foreigners are raping our women, build a wall. And I feel like that's what's so interesting about the comments that I'm reading, is that it's like they've taken the hyperbole in order to define the person that falls under that label. I saw someone saying something about Republicans hating poor people. I've met people in person too who think that. And again, I don't get the jump. Maybe I should start a series called Leaps of Logic or Leaps in Logic, because just because someone, they were talking about, if you're a Republican, that means that you want smaller government, that means that you want to cut welfare spending. It doesn't mean that that person hates poor people. It just means that they don't think the welfare state is the best way to help poor people. Now, it's true that there could be Republicans who do hate poor people, but it's also true that there could be Republicans who were once poor people. I'm not getting these jumps, but I do know that the jumps justify the hatred. I think the reason why this tweet stood out to me so much is because this is the pressure that I felt to say something and to start my channel. It was this pressure of, you can't even follow that line of thinking that, say, was mobilizing some of the right under President Trump because they cared about illegal immigration, was the way I understood it, but also legal immigration, which I don't see an issue with, but I understand to that some people that means that you hate foreigners, and I just don't get that leap. I'm trying really hard to understand it, because this sort of divisiveness is obviously what's fueling a lot of politics in the United States. And I also should give some context here. I am Jamaican. I'm not from the United States. I've been here for about 8 years. I went to a very, very, very progressive college, and I was pretty unaware of a lot of that stuff. One, because the political climate isn't the climate that it is today, but also because I was studying, I was doing what I came to the country to do, which was to pursue my degree and my passions academically. And I also didn't know if I would be staying in the country later or any of that at the time. Life sort of just unfolds in front of you, and then you make choices in the moment. And I just didn't see this kind of hatred. Like, it seemed more like people were for things, not against things. So they were for, say, I remember there was this concert at my college where someone who would probably identify herself as queer, which is a lot of the people I met there, a lot of whom were my friends, and she took her tampon out and threw it into the crowd on stage, which is really gross. But it was kind of like women shouldn't be ashamed of their bodies and that kind of thinking. And at the time I thought it was shocking, but I didn't really think it was bad. I still don't. I just think I can understand if people think that's gross or offensive. And I can also understand that, no, we're tired of being thought to think badly of our bodies, which I don't really see society doing that, but I can get that mindset. I don't see anything wrong with it, because it's more like they're expressing how they feel, and they're for the empowerment of whatever. And from what I understand, people still think that they think that way, but it's now to me become more of denouncing the opposite of that, and also making it clear to everybody else, aka virtue signaling, that you denounce that, and then drawing your line in the sand very clearly. And I don't know if I'm really explaining that properly, but I also used to think, for example, I actually did an art series called Searching for Humanity that was focusing on people who started organizations that help people, which I just got busy. I start lots of things and then I get busy, but that's something I was very interested in. And there were a lot of programs on campus that were geared towards helping people. And I think some of them actually, maybe most of them actually helped. And that seemed more active in the cause of helping people. That to me is very different from, I'm not going to be friends with that person. One thing I feel is actually doing something to help people, and the other is more just creating political divisiveness. So for me, coming into the country in 2010, the shift for me, what I've seen is that people are less for things and they're more denouncing things and pointing out hate and ostracizing the racist, xenophobic people, rather than, say, focusing on helping communities. Now, when I talk about helping communities, to me, you should help communities who are in need of help, not communities that tend to fall under the category of being in need of help. By that, I mean, you couldn't look at me and assume that I need help because I'm of a darker skin color, but you could, of dark complexion, but you would actually go into a community where they need help because of poor schooling in the area. Maybe you could help them with their homework, some kind of ongoing guidance like that. Or it doesn't have to be a community of, I hate using these terms, but like I have to use it to have the discussion, of colored people. It could be of white people who need help. So to me, it's like, it's not about actually helping people anymore. It's about putting the world into these categories where you can say you're for this and you're against that. Yeah, so that's what I personally have seen. Now I want to get back into those tweets that I was reading. Someone says, conservative student, Black athletes should perform community service for protesting. Black DSA member, I don't know what DSA means. Don't kill us, please. Conservative student, why don't you want to befriend me? So they're saying that the conservative student, so I don't get, the conservative student is promoting an attack on the Black student, and then the conservative student is getting upset when the Black student ostracizes that conservative student or says, I don't want to be friends with you. But here in this very specific tweet, it says the conservative student said Black athletes should perform community service for protesting. And then it says, Black DSA member, don't kill us, please. How do you get from Black athletes should perform community service for protesting to don't kill us, please? Like, how do you make that leap? That's the same thing as talking about with the immigration. Now, I understand that people say that the Black students are protesting police brutality, but that doesn't mean that the conservative student said, I want you to be killed. And so this is this leap that I just keep seeing it. I'm going to try and point this out more. I honestly don't get. It's such a leap in logic. Now, if I want to focus on this particular issue, I made a video about taking the knee, also made a video about Black Lives Matter, and I don't agree with the premise that Black people are being targeted by the police, and that more so than other groups based on their interaction rates with the police and the fact that I think that they commit more crimes on average than other groups. While I'm talking about all these things, I want to bear in mind that I want you, the audience, to bear in mind that I don't like these discussions. I feel like they shouldn't be about groups and what groups are facing. I know this is what the left does. They're like, oh, focus on the group because then you reach the people in need. But I think it's messy to do that and it's inaccurate. I think you should actually focus on the incident itself, focus on the fact that the person is a human and that their human rights are being violated, not that one group's human rights are being violated. Oh my God, this goes in deeper and deeper. And I know then people will say, okay, but historically, one group's human rights was being violated more so than another's. And then we're still seeing the ramifications of that today, which is also something I don't agree with. So in some ways, it comes down to people actually not agreeing on the premise of things. Like, I was just giving this police brutality and pointing out the leap in logic from the taking it to what I call the hyperbole. But if I think about immigration, the earlier example that I pointed out, that too, I'm not a fan of illegal immigration. I do think immigration law is too difficult for people coming in, but I also think that the people in the country have the right to say we don't want more legal immigration. And I don't think that makes them xenophobic. I think that makes them smart because they understand the burden that's being placed on their native population from incoming immigrants. Now, I understand that some people don't mind that burden, and I think that's okay. However, I think it's unfair to ask everybody else the people who do mind that burden to pay for the people who don't mind that burden, right? But people would say, well, no. Actually, there's some examples in here. They talk about human rights and people crossing at the border. And, well, I care about that too, but I don't understand how the conversation jumps from we want less immigration or no illegal immigration till we don't care about human rights at the border. See, it's like these leaps in logic that paints the person who has a concern about these things as being having no compassion or not caring about this group of people or not having human rights or not caring about human rights. I'm going into such a trail of logic here, which is what happens when I don't have an outline or a script, but I think you can follow where I'm going. So what I'm pointing out is that, number one, I've seen this shift from being for things to stating your position and defending viciously and attacking viciously anyone who you think is on the wrong side of the argument that you're trying to make, aka they're morally corrupt and they're evil. And then also this jump from what the stated position of, say, the conservative is, who's the enemy in this case to a lot of the left leading people, making a jump from their initial statement to a hyperbole that obviously it makes them sound like a horrible person. And then another thing that I want to point out, I still haven't given more examples, but another thing I wanted to point out is that when these people meet this conservative person, they immediately think to the hyperbole. And they think that the policies of, say, Donald Trump, they think both the rhetoric and the policies of Donald Trump fit the hyperbole, right? Of wanting to kill Black people or thinking that LGBT people shouldn't exist. And this seemed to be not only from random people on the internet, but a lot of people with a lot of followings. Like I saw Riley Dennis said something like that, like he totally supports not being friends with conservative people. I just don't know how to solve this problem because in my mind, conservative people don't represent those things. And I want to point out again where I'm coming from because I was not a part of this left-right political system where I'm from. In Jamaica, first of all, I didn't really follow politics, but also politics, the issues that people talk about aren't the same. And because I was in a very left environment when I came here, I definitely got the sense that Republicans were like the bad guys. But it didn't really mean anything much to me because people didn't care as much about it. Like people didn't point it out as much to me that I should be considering these people the bad guys. In my mind, I thought about like a very Christian person, and someone who maybe like wasn't for legal marriage of gay people, etc. But where I'm from, it's a very Christian nation, and forget about marriage of gay people. Like people can't even be socially accepted if they're public with it. Maybe except in some circles, but in the wider society, you can't. I think that's wrong. I actually don't really have a problem with gay marriage. Like I don't have a problem at all. But at the same time, I said really because I understand the idea that marriage was like a Christian thing. And then it's like gay people would be usurping the meaning of marriage from the religious context. Now, I'm making the argument for that, but I don't actually agree with it because I think that marriage is also legal and that married people get benefits that unmarried people don't get. And so you shouldn't be denied the rights of those benefits because in the eyes of God, for some religious people, it's not sacred or whatever. But at the same time, I also don't think that the government should be involved in marriage. Oh my God, I'm going so off topic right now. I was trying to get into some of the arguments. Now, I think that there are conservatives out there who think that, say, for example, gay people shouldn't get married. But that does not translate to gay people shouldn't exist. So this is a jump. And this is a jump that fuels the anger or the ability of the person on the left to say, I can't be friends with you because your beliefs and your values are abhorrent. However, I don't think that most conservatives, from what I've seen, actually hold those beliefs and values. Another thing I want to point out is that when they're talking about Trump and his rhetoric and his policies, I don't think Trump is racist. I think he's bombastic, maybe would be the word to describe him. I think It's not, I actually don't think he's very presidential in that sense, but I personally don't care about that. I care more about what he's doing or what he says he's going to do. And again, we disagree on these issues, but it doesn't mean that I or a conservative person who is against illegal immigration is against all immigrants or don't care about human rights at the border. So I'm just not getting those jumps and those leaps in logic. And when you ostracize people, for one, I don't think they're doing it based on reality. I think they're doing it based on the narrative they have in their head of what, say, Republicans or conservatives think. But it also doesn't make sense to me because what has actually happened since Trump got into power? I think immigration maybe is a bit harder, but I don't think that, say, for example, more Black people are being killed. I think that, in terms of, say, Black unemployment, that stuff is a big deal. But to some people, it doesn't matter because of how, I guess, Trump's rhetoric, which in their minds was not forgivable or unacceptable. I don't know. I'm going to read more of the comments. Okay, so here's a tweet that has 431 likes. I think some of that would be self-preservation if they were, say, Black, brown, or LGBTQ. I'm unclear how you become friends with someone who dismisses your experiences and sees full recognition of your equality and humanity as a nice to have, if that, in public policy. So I just find myself in an awkward position because I'm Black, in quotations. And if I had to pick a side, I would probably choose the right to identify myself as. And it's funny because in their statement it says someone who dismisses your experiences, and they would completely dismiss my experience as a quote-unquote Black person. You know what? I feel like I just can't fit into the paradigm. Like, that's what it is. I'm just like literally on a different wavelength when it comes to these topics because I'm not from here, I guess. It's not just that either. Because I like to think for myself, or I consider the individual experience as more important than the group experience. And when I meet someone, I just don't think that I can know them just because of a label. I really don't think I can. And that's not to say that I'm not aware of pointing out or seeing evil in another person, or being aware that people might have harmful intent towards me because of the group that I belong to, even if I don't personally identify with it. But I'm trying to understand. So I think from what I'm hearing, here's another tweet, 500. R, Republican, I dehumanize you, you're less than a person, or sexually defective or something. D, Democrat, but I'm a person. R, Republican, no you're not. I want the laws to reflect that you're not quite. Which laws do that? D, Democrat, I don't think we can be friends. R, Republican, you're so intolerant. Which Republican says that I dehumanize you? You're less than a person, or sexually defective or something. I know that there are mostly people out there who think this, but okay. So for example, I dehumanize you. I don't know where that comes from, actually. I don't know what specific opinion they're talking about, or the you're less than a person. The sexually defective, the only thing I can think of is I don't really hear people say that anymore. Like, I think in the past people used to try to say beat the gayness or the queerness or whatever out of someone, but nobody really does that anymore in Western societies. I think elsewhere they can't really do that in person, and I also in public. And I also think that most people don't actually hold those views anymore. It's more You want to change the language that we use in terms of the gender pronouns. I'm sorry if you can hear construction outside. Or they don't want someone coming into the bathroom because they changed their transgender person, because they think that people should identify biologically. But I don't see how that translates to sexually defective. Sorry, I'm not seeing it. And then the person says, I'm a person. So like, that has 500 likes. That's that one on the first one I was talking about. They're talking about dismissing your experience as equal and human because you're one of these protected classes. But I've never really heard any Republican or conservative say that. So what I'm seeing happen here is that these people on the left are, either through their own reasoning or what they've been taught by the media or maybe their academic professors, are translating those things that Republicans are concerned about into being dehumanized and not being seen as equal or a person. I am not getting that jump. I'm not getting it. So I think I've made that point clear about that jump in logic, to the point where they can feel like they're being attacked, or like they have to, in order to defend people's equality and humanity, they must ostracize anyone who promotes non-equality and dehumanization. The other thing is that in not talking to those people, in my opinion, I do see that as intolerance, and it's almost as if you are also delegitimizing that person's experiences and viewpoints, because the moment you meet them, when you learn off that label that they have and you attach those qualities to them, it's almost as if they don't really exist. You know, all that exists is what they represent to that person. So whatever reason they have that has made them feel like they can align themselves with that label is just blind to you, because you already know. That means that their experiences and opinions and the reason that it took for them to get there means nothing to you. So I'm trying to understand, and I get it. I mean, I said in my last video, I understand that for lots of people, whether or not you voted for Trump is a sign of your moral compass. I think it's wrong to do that. And I think you should actually talk to people. Again, I'm sorry about the noise, if you can hear that. Anyway, this was a bit of a ramble. I was just thinking about this, and I really wanted to dig my brain into it, because I was just like, I'm not getting this. I saw that thread, and it was just like comment after comment of how awful conservatives and Republicans are, and how much they're against the existence of people. And I'm just like, where are they getting this from? Like, I don't understand. You know, they talk about the platform that Trump ran on, and that it was xenophobic, and I got into the point that it's almost like we disagree on the premise. You know, like I don't consider myself a leftist at all. I'd rather consider myself independent, but people just think if you're independent that you're actually also conservative. And again, if I had to choose a side, I would choose conservatives. I really can't stand the left. I can't stand the moral high horse they're on. I can't stand the fact that they think that just because some black people tell them how they perceive the world, it means that all black people perceive the world that person did. And this goes for all these groups that they claim to protect. Even in this thread, there's no recognition of the fact that, say, there are LGBTQ people on the right, or there are black and brown people who are on the right, because there are, and it's not just like one or two. There are plenty of them. So I was just trying to understand, and maybe my exploration in my mind would be helpful for people both on the right and people on the left in this thread to like think about what they think. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye. They're devaluing the intrinsic worth of other people. hey, this guy thinks my family should just die to decrease the surplus population, but I'm not gonna let that get in that way of our friendship. No friend group is complete without one member who is constantly breaking out skull measuring calipers to determine whether another friend is an Armenoid or an Alpinoid Caucasian. That's really interesting because I'm pretty sure all the leftists in this comment thing are okay with all those forums that are asking you to put yourself into categories like that, which I have found reprehensible the moment I encountered it. But they're not seeing that that's the exact same thing. Like, if you think that, first of all, I think that it's fine to acknowledge that they're different groups, but it's as important to you, this person, I don't know about this specific person, but for a lot of the left to point these groups out so that they can protect them, as it is for this fictional person who is pulling out skull measuring calipers to place someone into some genetic or whatever box. And don't see how they don't see that.